In 2024, the Forgotten Heroes Foundation proudly welcomed retired Naval Commander Michael O2 Harvey as Director of Programming. With his 23 years of experience as an aviation navigator, Michael gained extensive knowledge in his field while forging strong connections with mentors and mentees. His deep love for aviation, combined with his commitment to serving his community, fuels his passion for leading impactful STEM events here at the Forgotten Heroes Foundation. We have seen the impact he makes on the young students who come through our hangar. Join us as Snoop sits down with O2 to learn more about his journey and vision.
Welcome to Jet Set Learn, the podcast where STEM education takes off. Today, our guest is Mike O2 Harvey. Mike's been a part of an integral and critical part of the Forgotten Heroes Foundation. As you guys know, we have a mission and we're chartered to reach underserved and underrepresented communities with STEM and aviation as the context. Mike has an interesting background and how he got to us and come on board with us to start for us to execute the mission. And so, Mike, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate this. I was trying to be in the background for a while, but it brought me out here. So yeah.
Now we got to bring you up to the front, man.
Yeah, well,
so tell the crew a little bit about just your background, just where you're from first, and then maybe how you got into aviation.
Okay. Yeah. So originally from Gary, Indiana, born and raised. I was my parents. My dad worked in a steel mill. I'm the oldest of three kids. I got two sisters, so I'm the oldest and the only son. So sort of partial on that end. I was always the favorite. At least I like to say that. But no, going up through my childhood years, wasn't really exposed to a lot of aviation. When I first got introduced, I was probably about 7, 8 years old, and my uncle at that time, my dad's brother, his youngest brother, actually got his private pilot's license and flew from Vincennes, Indiana, all the way to Gary, Indiana. That's sort of where I first got a chance to see an airplane go to an airfield, and didn't really understand what was going on at that time. Although I was excited, I wanted to run to the plane. And my dad was like, "No, stay back." And he went up in the air. And my uncle took him up, and I think I was telling you before, it was quote unquote a traumatic experience for him because my uncle was now doing payback for all the times that my dad had been bullying him when he was young. But after that, going to my grandma's house and then seeing the posters that my uncle had put up in his room of aviation cockpits, that sort of had me interested or intrigued at least to figure out, what this was and what it was all about. So going through school, I enjoyed math and interested in airplanes and all that stuff. I looked up to say, hey, what can you do in math, study and learn about airplanes? And the first thing they said was aerospace engineering.
So let me anchor back down on your that experience with you. Because you told me that story. That was pretty funny, especially after I got a chance to meet your uncle. So there's a little bit of payback, but one of the things we've seen obviously is that first being able to plant that seed or that vision in that head. So I like when you tell me if you can remember, like 7, 8 years old, were you excited about that? You were like, hey, that's something I wanted to do, or what were your thoughts like right then?
I was excited in a sense. I felt sort of I wanted to get in the plane and see what was going on, crawl around and see, but as a little kid. And your parents being very protective, they're like, no. So that was one thing that sort of stuck with me. And I was like, one day I want to be able to do that and see what's going on. And then, like I said, being able to go to my grandparents' house, and because when he left for college, he still had all of his posters of cockpits up there. And some of the stories he used to talk about, that sort of planted that seed and it started to take root. And little did I know that was pretty much the start to why I'm here today.
Yeah, that's amazing. It kind of is very consistent what we continually see with exposure early on.
Right. Yeah.
Plant that seed. Just kind of opening that mind up whenever you can.
Right.
After that, we move into high school. You kind of talked about you.
Yeah, the high school portion of it. And to be fair, a lot of schools. I'm in the middle of the country. So, I'm not on the coast to where it's a lot of Navy bases or anything like that. So it's predominantly Army, ROTC, everything is Army driven. And no kidding, a guy from a summer program when I was a senior and actually a junior in high school came down from West Point. It was like, hey, here's the deal. This is what I'm doing. When I go off to school, when I'm in the military school. I get paid when I get out of high school. When I graduate, I'll be officer. I'll have a job, and then once I finish my obligation, at that moment in time, this was in '93. So he was like, "I'll be able to work anywhere, and I'll be able to make upwards of 90 to the lower parts of 100,000." And that's big time for a kid like me coming from Gary, Indiana, steel mill town, and also just during that time with the economics.
So this Army recruiter. It wasn't an Army recruiter.
Oh, yeah. Although I don't. It was a West Point cadet.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So you call him a recruiter in a sense, because we always rag back and forth. So we could go ahead and say he was a West Point equivalent. He was a recruiter, yeah. But no, in all fairness, it was a cadet. Yeah. And they usually come back and talk to schools. And I think he was an alumni from a rival high school or something like that. But this was his stint for his Christmas program where he would just go talk to schools and introduce them to programs.
So what year was this in your?
This was in '93. So this was like my junior year. My junior year, yeah.
So. We're going to get to the most exciting part.
Right.
Your decision to not necessarily go green, but to go blue. We'll talk about here in a second. But kind of in high school, you kind of mentioned earlier you were mathematically inclined. You kind of got into that. Was that something you just had a natural, or did you have any input from home or anything like that?
My dad is very mechanically inclined. My mom is a school teacher as well. She enjoyed math. So I always like working puzzles. I always like building things. So the construction part and just trying to piece things together and understand how different things go build stuff was always something that I like to do. Didn't like to read a lot, but I definitely like to build stuff and just be intrigued by figuring out puzzles and problem solving. So that's sort of where the engineering portion came in. Did some summer programs at some of the universities when I was going through school at Purdue University, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, where they really introduce you into the engineering side. So I was able to get a flavor for mechanical, electrical, but nothing with the aerospace at that moment in time. But again, aerospace was something I said, okay. And to be fair, another thing, true transparency. When you look at your history books, you don't see, and at that moment in time, although they had the and we were talking about this as well, the Ebony Black History almanac, encyclopedias, you really didn't see that much about the aviation side. And or if they did offer it, I wasn't exposed to it and I wasn't aware, but I did know about Guyon Buford, and he was one of the first African-American astronauts. And so, yeah, I really looked towards that as my North Star when I was saying, okay, aerospace engineering, astronaut. If I can't get into the aircraft, at least I can work for NASA. And so, you tell when people say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you say aerospace engineer, all your grandparents and uncles say, oh, baby, that's great. That's good. So it was one of those things. And I stuck to my guns on that. So. Yeah.
So we had this Army cadet / recruiter.
Right.
Not close the deal.
Yeah.
But you already had at least the cool thing I like about this is you start to have visions and you start exploring options early on. And I think that's key. It's a key part of what we in the foundation talk to, to people of all ages about as far as getting that direction. But so aerospace engineering, man. So go ahead and tell them, you went to the Naval Academy, aerospace
Academy. So to be fair, as I was trying to figure out this colleges and stuff, Missouri Institute, I think, in Missouri Rolla, they were known for aerospace engineering. Embry-Riddle, of course, Daytona Beach, which was my top choice at the moment in time. Georgia Tech as well. My parents didn't want me to go down to Daytona Beach because they said nothing good happened down there but parties. But didn't know anything about the academy, and it just so happened when I filled out the questionnaire for the West Point Academy, your name goes into a pool for all the academies to be able to draw out of. And the Naval Academy called me up and said, "Have you heard about the Naval Academy?" I was like, "No." Went to a summer program in Maryland and enjoyed that, the rigors that they had going on and just the curriculum that they offered was great. And from there was able to get hooked. And once they told me I was doing that, I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to the academy.
So, I know we don't have much time to kind of get into it, but for the crowd and for the audience, to get into the Naval Academy is not just something that you just on a whim be able to do. There's a lot of coordination. A lot of people have to vouch for you, even people, politicians, everyone else, where you have to get the endorsements. And my man being from a small town in Indiana, coming from humble beginnings and being able to have the performance in his life and, things he's doing so that he can go out and ask for those endorsements, get those was key. And it's something like we, again, try to keep mentoring the next generation about being ready, performing at that. And so my man go to Naval Academy. Then shortly after that, we go to, flight school was next, right?
Yeah. So got picked up for aviation and actually got picked up for pilot training and was super excited about that. So they had a couple of options once we did our selection board at the academy. At that moment in time, with the backlog of pilots going on in Pensacola, they were just starting up the joint service program, training program with the Air Force. And so they were like, hey, listen, you can either go to Pensacola, where you could possibly be prolonged and sit the bench for about 6 to 8 months, or you could go to Enid, where they'll be able to get you through, and you fly T-37s, which may give you a better chance to be able to get selected for jets. So I was like, well, let me try that out. So I went to Enid, Oklahoma, Vance Air Force Base, and that was my first time being really exposed to aviation, getting into a plane.
Is this the first time you got in a plane?
First plane.
So my man is 7, 8, wanting to crawl around in a plane.
First
not
time
in your 20s, are you crawling in one?
I get into besides just being on an aircraft, a regular airliner. Yeah, this is my first time being in a plane. Saying you have the controls, and it was a great experience. It was one of those experiences that really built character for me, because unfortunately I did not. I ended up getting attrited out of the program because my landings were too hard for the Air Force. And funny thing is that when I got picked up for Naval Flight Officer School, so went down to Pensacola. And when they did the pilot appreciation syllabus for that week, the guy I'm flying around. And the pilot in back, my instructor, who's actually a pilot himself, is like, have you flown before? I was like, well, I didn't tell him my whole story. But when I landed and based off the Air Force standards, it was a hard landing. And so I was apologizing to the pilot. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit the deck this hard and all that stuff. He's like, what are you talking about? You're in the Navy. That's how we land, because we got to land on the ship. And so that sort of recaged me. I was a little bit bitter at that time, because a couple of the guys that did go through Pensacola, there was no backlog, and they were able to successfully go. But everything happens for a reason. Guy had a plan, and at the end of the day, I was still able to fly, still able to do what I enjoyed. So, yep, I'm up in the air now, and then we go from there. Yeah, so
the cool thing I like about that story is a lot of stories when we go and get to know people. A lot of times we hear about all the high points, but that was right. Obviously a low point. Yeah, but the way you handled it and the character that you kind of pull from that, and knowing that that pathway led us eventually. We meet up in San Diego and so on. No doubt we would have met regardless. But the fact that the things that you went through then allows you to be able to do the outreach and things
God's
like
timing and everything.
Exactly. So, all right. So San Diego, what's up with San Diego?
Yeah. So San Diego got picked up for S3 Vikings, which was at that time the for anti-submarine warfare. That was during the Cold War, but once that was over with, we're primarily used for tanking. So I joke around, and you flew S3s with me. That's when we first met. So a few things happened during that time. 1, I got married. 2, I got my call sign. 3, I was able to do a couple of things that were pretty awesome that nobody did in the S3. Yeah. So we'll fast forward real quick. The quick story of how I got my call sign, since you already called it out, is as I said before, I got married while I was in San Diego. My wife wrote back in the day, they used to have Weddings of a Lifetime and The Wedding Story, those TV shows, which was a big thing on TLC. And she wrote into it, wouldn't it be funny if we got on this show? She wrote into it. And yeah, we got picked for the show. They said, here's a guy from the Academy. She gave her story and all that stuff. So funny thing happens is when you do the show, and then your wife, you get into the squadrons, and then your wife meets the wives, and they always ask, how'd you meet your husband and all that stuff. I didn't give her the layout and say, don't say anything, keep everything a secret. And she spilled the beans. It was like, yeah, we were on TV, we're on a wedding story. And so, yeah, I go flying out in the Gulf on a mission. And one night I come back down, and when I get to my ready room, the whole whiteboard is just full of call signs and names and nicknames because they had watched the video. This was VHS. So, this is back in the day. So they had to mail it over VHS tape, and they sat down and watched the whole VHS tape. And I walk in, and they're clapping, just laughing and clowning me. So Oxygen came about because Oprah then took over TLC, bought that channel, so it became the Oxygen channel. And so they gave me O2 for that. So it could have been a lot worse. The funny story is when they asked me, I tried to tell them it was because back with the S3, we talked on a boom mic, but for some reason my boom mic was terrible, or they say I just talked too low. So I always had to use my oxygen mask. So I was like, because I use my oxygen mask. And then people would be like, no, that's not the story. That's not the story. And then I have to tell them the real
trying to
story.
see if we don't have a really oxygen mask here.
Yeah.
But for the audience, so showing up in a call into a squadron, in particular, most aviation squadron was regardless of service, you wind up as a way to kind of bring you into the fold. You get a nickname in military and Navy, particularly. We call those call signs. I call them Mike O2 Harvey, and that O2 was for oxygen. So that's the story behind it. But the key thing about call signs in general is that they're either going to make fun of you, embarrass you, or it's going because you did something stupid. Either way, it's usually not a flattering thing. It's a way to kind of poke fun at you without people really knowing it and all being all that blatant. But so now we got the story behind that.
Do they know your call sign? Do they know your call sign? See, you over here talking about mine. Do they know your call signs?
Well, for the crew, yeah, I think that's been on at least one of the.
All right, well, as long as they know your call sign.
One of the episodes at least has been introduced.
Right,
yeah, so my call sign is Snoop. And maybe we'll get in a little more detail on that, but this is not about me. It's about you. So we go kind of stick to it. So military experience, flew multiple planes, right?
Yeah,
and so that, again, your diverse background in aircraft exposure, but you flew two, I will say, because I share your sentiment, flew the S3 Viking. Yep. And then, we flew the F-18 Super Hornet. And that's the last plane we flew, in the military before we got out and started doing this. So what was your first ride in the F-18 like? Tell me about that.
Man, it was amazing. So just watching the people, if you watched the Blue Angels episode on, I think it's Amazon Prime, and watching the excitement of people when they get in the plane, or if you've seen videos of people in the plane, it's like being on a roller coaster. You go from 0 to 100 in no time, and just being that guy and being able to be in that plane is something that, it's an experience that it's hard to describe, but it's one of those things where we do it so much that it just becomes common practice. And I always joke with some of the people when I flew S3s, we used to be the if you remember the movie Sandlot, we were those kids, and then they played against the F-18 guys and the guys that had the pointy, flew the pointy nose cool jets, and so we were the ones in S3s, always had a good time, always had fun. We go do our stuff. And when we would do our cross countries where we would fly into to civilian airports, for training, to go pick up, do supply runs and stuff like that, we call in to air traffic control and say, we're S3B Viking coming in. And you could just hear crickets. We could just imagine it was a question mark over the tower, control tower, and they're looking because you have a whole line of other airliners in, and they have everybody's space, and they're like, please make good speed and get down on the deck as fast as you can, because they're trying to maneuver. And you fast forward, and we're flying F-18s, so now the voice changes. Yes, I'm an F-18 guy. We're
all
F-18
smooth,
coming
right?
in, and they're like, just bring it. So we come in and we do a little show and we get off. And the flag is waving, everybody's clapping, the red car. It's just a different dynamic, and it's a different atmosphere and environment. But with that, as you know, there are more challenges. And it's more intense, and it's more driven on everything is mission focused, but you're actually in the fight because you have the weaponry to be able to do carry out the orders that's been given to you in the military. So
yeah.
It's
So
totally
aside from the fighting, I mean, that's that was exciting in a certain way, fulfilling, at least for me. Just based on being mission focused, all the hard work that goes into training, and you actually, you kind of go out and get a chance to do that. But some of the, even on the other side, like the very cool perspective I've always had and appreciation of it is when we land in some of these remote places and you see, doesn't matter what the, kid's background, whatever else, but they they're looking at the plane, they're looking at you, you climb out and, they want to come up, and then just that immediate acceptance and inquiries that you get from just people in the community of all ages come up and kind of talk to you. And then it's an opportunity to, represent the flag, do a little bit of outreach there. And I'll say I've always kind of had a personal outreach bug myself. And you look for those kind of opportunities, but kind of shifting, you can go ahead and, so how did you, we met, in flight school down in San Diego over 20 something years ago. It was a while back. We met a while back, and we've had those opportunities to do flying jobs and non-flying jobs and those things. I would say, like, even that career development exposure in the military prepped me up for a lot of ways with one, opportunity to do things, and then two, with it really solidified, this desire to come out and like do things that contribute back to the community and whatever else. So, Tell them how you got involved with the.
You bring up a good point, and I totally forgot. Just going all the way back in my career, one of the things, and I'm sure you had to do it too, when you did the flight training, we got a chance to take a cross country, and I actually flew back to Gary, Indiana, and so that was a huge deal. I was in the newspaper and everything like that. We flew a T2. It was a T2, and it was another black aviator, and I can't remember his name at this moment in time, but he was actually from Gary as well. So it was a homecoming for both of us, and the crowd and the reception we had there, it was awesome. So just like you said, being able to get out the plane. And then before even getting out the plane, trying to tell my parents to stay back because we still got to cut off the engines. They're trying to run up to the plane and all that stuff. But seeing the crowd out there and just being able to, they're seeing somebody that looks like them get out of a jet and, with a flight suit on and all that stuff. That sort of start, again, planting the seeds. Just like I talked to you before, when my uncle planted the seed first flying, that sort of was a seed planted in me to be like, hey, this is an outreach opportunity to where I can actually go out and meet people and do all this stuff. And then throughout my career, being able to go to certain air shows and different events, again, climbing out the plane, being a one of one, or it was always a luxury and it was always a pleasure to have another black pilot like you. It was another black pilot in my squadron. We flew to an event, and just to have two people come out, you take off your helmet and you see two brown people looking like, wow, we've never seen this before. And then being able to talk to the kids and, just talk to everybody about the opportunities that and what we've gone through in our experiences. That was, again, me cultivating it until we fast forward to here where you got out before me. I spent a few more years in, and you already had this passion, and you from the get-go, you're like, hey, I need you to come over here. And I just didn't have the time. Even when I got out working at another corporation and stuff like that, I just didn't have the time to be able to do it. And then once I was actually able to be afforded this time and then actually really see the impact that you were doing, that really brought it full circle. When I come home, and I told my wife the first time we had one of the events here, and I told her, and she could just see the excitement on my face and all that stuff. She was like, well, you really enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, it was pretty awesome just to be able to have that impact and see the kids and watch them go from, being the shy, timid kids, the ones that were scared, never been in planes before, to jumping out of the plane. But I got a chance to fly. I got a chance to hold the stick. Planting those seeds that, we hope will take root, whether it's in STEM, whether it's in aviation, but just to be able to say that they can, just like your motto says, I can because I am. Being able to say, I flew a plane before and have that experience that a lot of kids, whether you're privileged, whether you're not privileged, aren't even able to say. So we're able to afford them that opportunity is pretty awesome.
Well, man, I'll say this, what we're doing and the impact that we will continue to scale is going to be always a team, a team effort. we get ideas, we toss them around. We just had a little meeting just downstairs with some ideas kind of going around. So it's a team effort. Super glad that you decided notched out the time to get on the team.
I'm super happy now.
But one of the things I want to kind of revisit, you kind of mentioned, because as you know, we are looking to inspire innovators.
Right.
And we also preach, don't let the fact that you are one of one deter you from doing greatness. Right. Because if you're going to innovate and if you're going to be one of one, no one's going to look like you. They wouldn't have done that. However, we cannot understate the value in representation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's, we look to inspire everybody.
Right.
But there is definitely value in that representation. And we know that. That's why, that's part of the pieces. True. As we cultivate the next generation of innovators, it will be a diverse group of folks because everyone is getting exposed in a way. So we're expounding that exposure and the stuff that you do with the ideas you come to the table with. I mean, I couldn't do this stuff without you. So I want to kind of ask you. So you've been in the aviation industry for multiple decades. I ain't gonna date you. I know I got more gray hair than you, but multiple decades. Like, what have you seen just from a let's just talk, not necessarily the social side of it, but from a technology standpoint, how have you seen it change the time you were in the military, and where do you see it kind of going in the future?
Well, what we've seen, and you've been right there with me, where we've seen a lot of quote unquote mechanical gauges, not necessarily steam, so to speak, but pneumatic gauges, to where now you have the glass cockpit, to where you get now to the F-35. And in my previous job, my last job, while I was before I got out of the military, I was sort of working that program with the F-35, to where they joke everything now is so automated that they say, even with the F-18, they say now the pilot is the voting member of the aircraft. I want to turn this way. Okay, well, we're going to turn when we want to. And it's not to that extent, but everything is so automated that it's just becoming that much more robust, and it's because of the requirements and the tasks that are being placed on aviators, which is why they're trying to sort of reduce the task saturation by allowing a lot of stuff to be automated. So I think we're moving in that way. As you already know, airlines is pretty much automated for the most part, but you still keep the pilot in there because you always want to have that man in the loop for the safety precautions. But we're looking at the drones now. We're looking at unmanned vehicle systems that are becoming more and more robust and more sophisticated. And I'm gonna date you. I know you saw the movie Stealth back in the day, and it's one of those type deals where that could be, you can almost have a plane that talks to you and says, "No, I'm not going to do it." Hopefully that doesn't happen. But again, with the AI and what's going on now with the new progressions and stuff like that, where we're trying to improve on and build on AI, that could very well be a possibility. I still think at the end of the day that you'll still need to have a human piece that human interface with the airplane to be able to do some for the safety aspect of it and for the overrides and different things like that. But we're definitely moving towards that direction to where it's going to be more and more technology biased towards allowing the plane to be able to do a lot of things.
And that's a real insightful look at it with the increased use of automation.
Right.
That automation is facilitated because of computing power and those kind of things, and just advances in sensors and those kind of things. So I think for one of our projects, maybe we should come up with a way to kind of introduce some automation to the, during one of our next projects we do.
That's good. Okay. Thank you, sir. I got that. I'll put that on my thing. Part of the program director. I'll put it on there.
Yeah. One of the things we have at the Forgotten Heroes Foundation is our own electric plane.
Right.
We've been using that for a lot of the outreach and context, and it's been very unique. What do you see? What have you seen with electric aviation in particular in the past?
Well, coming here was the first time I actually saw an electric plane, and again, when we talk about the advancements, I totally forgot about the whole going green side of the house. It's up and coming. There's some things just like you have now with electric vehicles that although they're more prominent now, they're still not up to when it comes to recharging and stuff, they're still trying to figure out ways to speed up the charging processes. They're coming up with whether or not they got to change out the batteries, swap batteries, different things like that. Well, aviation is just on the cusp of that, and you're starting to see a few more electric planes out. But at the same time, there's a niche for people who want to figure out ways to charge the plane, figure out ways of how you can make the plane fly longer, as opposed to having the shorter legs. So there's opportunities there. Again, I think it's only a matter of time. And that's some of the things we try to, I'll tell you this, the funny thing about kids is the ideas that they have, and they think outside the box, where we're more confined because as you get older, you're more quote unquote stuck in your ways. But being able to listen to the kids and their dreams and aspirations and just the imagination that they have, we actually glean a lot off of those kids when we have our programs and when we do our events. And the ideas that they have, we say, okay, that's a great idea. Let's figure out and brainstorm how we get to that point. So being able to work with kids like that in schools, we're hoping to be able to find schools that have those kids that want to do it and then create clubs, science clubs or after school clubs, to where we can help build out and then be able to have them a sponsor or have them work with us on the plane, and they have sponsorships and stuff like that.
Yeah. So like a couple months ago, we have a program, kind of a trial program where as a foundation, we have developed and are developing a curriculum around the electric side of aviation.
Right.
And we did a historic flight across the state of Virginia, the longest electric plane or electric flight across the state of Virginia. You can check out a video of that on our YouTube channel. And that was really fun to be a part of that. But the way we folded that into the programming that we do, you led that obviously, and it was that was very fulfilling. I just like everything else though that we're doing, we're looking to inspire the next generation of innovators and creators in business and professionals. So, us using the electric for our side, knowing that that's going to be the future, either whether it's the positive of, making it more sustainable, making it more green, or whether it's being more efficient with the resources that we have. Taking those innovators, giving those kids and young adults an opportunity to see it in action. And then give them an environment or an opportunity to be creative and solve some of these problems that we know that's facing the industry. I think you and I will agree that we will see, electrical technology be more involved in aviation, to the fact that whether it's powering it or recharging, making it more sustainable, whatever else. But that's the area for the next generation of innovators. Exactly. So we talked about the technical side of it. How have you seen the face of aviation change over the years?
Yeah, so the face, I think it's become more diverse and not necessarily dealing with culture or anything like that, or race. It's become more diverse, male and female, where you see women now. We went from having predominantly male fighter squadrons to now it's diverse. You have female, and some of the best pilots I've flown with have been some female pilots, and they get after it, and they don't care at all. And it was an honor and privilege flying with the women in the aviation field. But I think it's becoming more open in a sense with the opportunities on the military side. And I know some of the airlines are trying to increase their programs and exposure as well. But for me, again, it all boils back down to what we're doing in the foundation, towards the grassroots, where we try to plant that seed and show people that there's an opportunity for you to do it. Whether you want to fly, whether you want to do the maintenance side of the house, whether you just want to do STEM, to be able to get them that exposure. So once you get that bug, hopefully it's able to take root. And if you're able to matriculate through our programs that we offer, to be able to continue your pursuit towards aviation, great. If not, at least you've been exposed to where you can explore other opportunities to be able to do it. So it's growing in a sense. It's not where I would like it to be, because there's still, when you continue to say that there's first in things, then that means we have not reached that level to where it becomes a common practice. Once it becomes a common practice and it's a standard or norm, then we don't have to worry about the first. But I think there's still going to be room for first, and we're going to hopefully, with our organization, try to help break those barriers.
Yeah, the way I kind of say it is, normalizing diversity.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not, like you said, it's not just race diversity. It's not just, even gender for that, man or woman for that matter. It's diversity in thought, diversity and so that I will say though, I'll feel that our job is done. Like,
right.
Hopefully it's never done because I enjoy it so much, but I'll feel that our job is done when, we do taxi up, we get out, and the first thing people notice is not it's two black guys getting out, yeah. But they notice, hey, that's a cool plan, exactly. And it's just like it's not a, oh wow, people are now both on all cultural backgrounds understand that right. Hey, aviation is a diverse industry, we have opportunities for everybody, and right. So kind of going through there, getting to that point. Will we get there? I think we have in other areas. So why wouldn't we? It
just takes time. It just takes time.
I'll say it's a good ride getting there.
Oh yeah.
Exposing and flying with people, all kinds of people. We've had multiple people on the podcast from all kinds of backgrounds, and it really it's been an awesome experience to just hear their story, but also let other people let our podcast followers kind of hear that and be able to contextualize that. And I believe, that's part of this normalizing the diversity, normalizing performance, and normalizing the expectation right. For people to perform rather than, having any other excuses.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about your beginning, how you got into aviation.
Yep.
Made the right decision and went Navy.
Yep, of course.
Anything else you want to tell us about,
No, again, I think the biggest thing is, and like you said before, we've known each other for over 20 years, and to see this come full circle to where we're doing something now, even out the military, that we love doing, and it's giving back. Based off our experiences, I'm from up north, you're from down south, but still similar experiences. Although I had shoes and you didn't wear shoes when you were growing up.
Come on, man.
We like, I got to joke with you every once in a while.
I'm gonna get you back.
I got to joke with you, but coming from similar backgrounds, yeah. And then being able to be able to be in this position to where we can allow. And give kids these opportunities. I'm excited about what we have in the future with Forgotten Heroes. Part of our vision is we want to be able to reach out this year to all the cities within the 757. The goal is to get at least touch 2,500, 5,000 kids.
Yeah.
And then we've been working with people up in Richmond, the PALS League up in Richmond, so that's already a plus. But just expanding it, and I think being able to come on board to where you were doing a great job, but being able now to assist you and sort of push and give you some help cover your blind spots, which is what I like to do as a navigator. That's my job. You're the pilot, you lead. I'm Goose. I'm in the background just trying to fulfill and make sure you get to where you need to be at. So having those opportunities and being able to help you open up those doors, I think we have a lot of good things planned for us with summer programs, some events throughout the year. So yeah, stay tuned. It's a lot of good things happening.
So that's awesome. I mean, as a director of programming, I really do. It's good to hear that those kind of things. Those kind of things are churning. Part of the reason for us having this podcast is for the audience to get to know you personally. So, right. so what do you got going on? What's next personally?
What's next for me personally? I don't know. I enjoy this. I know you've been trying to get me to get in a plane and get my pilot license as well. So it's on the table. I haven't totally ruled that out. I do enjoy being though on the ground as an administrator, just making sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to do. But it would be nice if I need to get up and go someplace to be able to get in a plane and be like, yeah, I got to go from A to B as opposed to being in traffic. So I don't know. We'll see. The world is my oyster.
I hope you enjoyed listening to or getting introduced to our new director of programming here at the Forgotten Heroes Foundation. And for the rest of you, don't ever forget, I can because I am.